It was a quiet Sunday evening when the Moyo family packed into their small car. The father, Mr. Daniel Moyo, was a hardworking man who loved his family more than anything in the world. His wife, Grace, was a gentle woman whose smile could calm any storm. In the back seat sat their two children. Ruth, the eldest, was 17. She was intelligent, beautiful, and full of dreams. She wanted to become a teacher someday. Next to her was her little brother Samuel, a playful boy of only 9 years old who loved football and laughter. They were returning from visiting relatives in another town. The road was quiet. The sky was slowly turning dark. As they drove, the parents were talking about the future. "Ruth will be finishing school soon," Grace said proudly. Daniel smiled. "My daughter will go far in life," Ruth laughed shyly. "Daddy, I will make you proud." None of them knew those would be the last happy moments they would ever share together. Suddenly, a speeding truck appeared from the opposite lane. The driver lost control. Everything happened in seconds: screeching tires, a loud crash, shattered glass. The small family car rolled violently across the road. When the dust settled, the night became silent again. Inside the wreckage, the two children were alive, but their parents were gone. The news spread quickly. Relatives arrived from everywhere. At the funeral, people cried loudly. They spoke about how good Daniel and Grace were, but after the burial, something unexpected happened. The relatives who once called the children our beloved family began fighting over property. Daniel had left behind a small house, some land, and a few savings. Instead of protecting the children, the relatives took everything. One uncle claimed the house, another took the land, even the furniture was carried away. Within a few weeks, Ruth and little Samuel had nothing left. They were forced to live in a tiny, broken shack on the edge of town. Hunger soon followed. Samuel cried many nights, "Big sister, I'm hungry." Ruth's heart broke every time she heard those words. She tried everything. She searched for work, but no one wanted to hire a 17-year-old girl with no education and no connections. Days turned into weeks. Food became scarce. Samuel began losing weight. Ruth felt trapped. One evening, as she sat outside the shack watching the sunset, she whispered to herself, "I must do something, even if it costs me my dignity." Soon after that night, Ruth began working in a nightclub. At first, she only danced. The flashing lights, loud music, and smell of alcohol surrounded her every night. Men stared, some offered money. Every time she stepped onto the dance floor, her heart felt heavy. But in her mind, she repeated one thing: "I am doing this for Samuel." With the little money she earned, she bought food and medicine for her brother. During the day, she acted like everything was normal. But at night, she carried the burden alone. Sometimes she cried before leaving the house. Sometimes she cried after returning. One night, after finishing work, she went home and knelt beside her bed. For the first time in many months, she prayed, "God, I don't know if you still hear me." Tears rolled down her face. "I don't want this life, but I need to feed my brother. Please redirect my life." The next night, she went back to the club again. Because prayers alone did not fill an empty stomach. One evening, a quiet man sat at a corner table watching the dancers. His name was Mr. Michael Banda. He was a businessman in his mid-40s. Unlike the others, he wasn't drinking or laughing loudly. He simply observed the room. When Ruth stepped onto the stage, he noticed something different about her. She didn't look like the other dancers. Her eyes carried sadness. After her performance, he approached her. "Can we talk?" he asked gently. Ruth hesitated, but she needed money. They left the club and went to a small motel. After everything was finished, the man sat quietly on the edge of the bed. Then he asked a question that surprised her. "Why are you doing this job?" Ruth looked confused. "You are beautiful," he continued. "You look intelligent. This life doesn't seem like your path." For a moment, she remained silent. Then suddenly she began to cry, and she told him everything: the accident, the funeral, the relatives who stole everything, the little brother who depended on her. When she finished, the man sat frozen. Then he asked softly, "How old are you?" 17. The man's face turned pale. He left the motel in silence. That night he couldn't sleep. Her story haunted his heart. The next day, Mr. Banda returned to the club. But Ruth wasn't there. He came back the next night, still nothing. A week passed. Finally, he asked one of the workers if they knew where she lived. After many questions, he found the small shack where she stayed. When he arrived, he saw something heartbreaking. Ruth was kneeling beside Samuel. The little boy was weak and barely breathing. "Samuel, stay with me," she cried. "Mr. Banda rushed inside. "What happened?" "He hasn't eaten properly for days," she said in panic. Without hesitation, Mr. Banda carried the boy to his car and drove straight to the hospital. Doctors quickly treated Samuel. After several hours, the doctor came out. "He will recover," he said. Ruth collapsed in tears of relief. Later that evening, Mr. Banda sat beside Ruth in the hospital corridor. "I want to help you," he said. Ruth looked at him carefully. "What do you want in return?" "Nothing. I will pay for your education. You will go back to school." Ruth's eyes filled with tears again. "Why would you do that for me?" Mr. Banda lowered his head. "Because I feel guilty for what happened in that motel." Ruth shook her head gently. "If you didn't meet me, how would God use you to help me?" Those words touched the man deeply. For the first time in many years, he felt something powerful inside his heart. Purpose. True to his word, Mr. Banda supported Ruth's education. She returned to school. Years passed. Ruth studied hard every day. Samuel grew stronger and healthier. Finally, the day came when Ruth graduated from university. She stood proudly in her graduation gown. In the front row, Mr. Banda and Samuel clapped loudly. Ruth walked to them and hugged them both. "You changed my life," she said. Mr. Banda smiled. "No, God did." As years passed, Mr. Banda grew older. His health slowly weakened. Ruth never forgot what he had done for her. She took care of him like a father. Meanwhile, something strange happened to the relatives who stole her parents' property. Heavy floods destroyed the land. Storms damaged the house. Everything they had taken eventually disappeared. Ruth never celebrated their misfortune. Instead, she remembered one lesson: what is taken unjustly never lasts. One evening, Ruth sat beside Mr. Banda and said, "I prayed for God to change my life, but I didn't know he would send a stranger